So how many of you know whenever God begins to invade on enemy territory, the enemy fights back? And he does so relentlessly. Now, I explained to everybody, hopefully you got that on Sunday, that I am not a demon under every rock kind of person, okay? But at the same time, when God's people advance the kingdom, the enemy doesn't take that lying down. We do not have a passive enemy at all. He takes notice, and then he will do everything he can to try to put an end to that advance, to try to damage that church, to try to hurt the people of God that are in that church. Now, why do I say this? Because anytime any work of God does something significant for the Lord, the enemy is going to fight against that. In fact, I'll even go further. I think that the enemy recognizes spiritual potential. And so I think the enemy even recognizes what God's people can do before God's people recognize what they can do. Did that mess anybody up? I think the enemy recognizes your potential more than you do, and he gets frightened by it. The enemy will not waste his time. Period. He will not waste his time. And so if this church is doing something good for the kingdom, the enemy will try to mess that up. If this pastor is trying to do something good for the kingdom, the enemy will try to mess that up. So we should not be shocked by this, right? We mentioned this Sunday when we talked about there are more that are for us than those who are against us. We need to recognize that there is a bigger picture going on here. It's nothing we need to fear, but there's a bigger picture going on. And the enemy will try to fight back when God's church gets serious about leading people to Christ, when God's church gets really serious about discipling people, doing outreach. I mean, I have personally seen it. I've seen it in this church. I've seen it in this church this year. And it just makes me say, okay, God, what is the enemy trying to prevent here? God, what is the enemy trying to prevent? And sure, you know what? If it's if our problem is bad leadership on my part because I'm making stupid decisions, please, God, tell me, okay? But at the same time, if there is a potential for the Lord to do something great, I think that the enemy sees what's in the works, and he will try to stifle that before there's results. Before there's results. So we shouldn't be surprised about that. In 1 Thessalonians, we saw that some good things happened. The enemy is not happy, so he will try to use persecution. Remember those struggles? Persecution, bad teaching. Oh, I also mentioned that there were some lazy Christians that continued to be a drain on the fellowship as well. And I neglected that. I should have said that. The enemy will try to use attacks from without and from within. I mean, that's how he operates. So we need to recognize that.